The New York Giants 2025 preseason kicks off, and here's some of what I'll be looking for as the Giants visit the Buffalo Bills. Locked on Giants starts right now.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, credentialed member of the New York Giants media for Locked On, as well as for New York Giants on SI, which is where you can find all of my written work. And as always, we welcome on in our Blue Crew community members, our everydayers, our newcomers, and everybody in between. And we thank you for spending part of your day with us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. And if you're making us your first listen of the day, we thank you for that as well. All right, folks, we have made it. Preseason football for the New York Giants kicks off on Saturday. The Giants head up north to Buffalo to face the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen will not be playing for the Buffalo Bills, by the way, but Sean McDermott, the head coach up there, said that he will probably play some of his starters. So what will we, or I specifically, what will I be looking for to watch in the first preseason game for the Giants? So we'll talk about that first. Then in segment 2, we're going to take a look at some of the battles and where I think these battles stand as of, where we're at training camp at this point in training camp and who needs to do what. Injuries will factor that in and all that stuff, just to kind of gauge what direction maybe some of these battles are heading. And speaking of injuries, I've been beating the drum about the Giants playing their starters and key reserves. Well, I've got more ammunition for you as to why that is important. And you know what? This information that I came across will kind of maybe suggest why the Giants have had troubles with injuries. So I'll lay that on you in segment 3. So that is our list of topics for today. Again, we welcome on in everybody. All right, let's get into it. Annual reminder regarding preseason games. The score does not matter. The Giants go 0-3. Who cares? The games don't count in the standings. What the coaches are looking for, obviously, is performance, decision-making. They're looking to see if guys separate themselves. They're looking to smooth out any game day operations. So it's preseason for everybody. You're going to see sloppy football. You're going to see, especially, you'll see sloppy football as you get further down the depth chart. A lot of those guys that you see in these games will not be on rosters come September. All right. So that being said, what are we looking for? What are we going to expect from this game? I believe that the Giants will play some of their starters in this game. I'm not saying they're going to play them all, but I do think they're going to play some of them. Now, why do I say that? Because Brian Daboll, just kind of reading between the lines and hedging my bet a little bit here, there was no joint practice. And he spoke about the importance of needing to tackle, the importance of playing at game speed, which you cannot simulate in practice. So even though the Giants do have some guys who are banged up and who will not play, and I'll get to that in a moment, I do think they're going to maybe give their starters a conservative series or two, which is a plan. Remember, I outlined earlier in the week what I would like to see them do. So that's what I think is going to happen. The question is how ready are they going to be? Because remember, in training camp, the starters, for example, they're only getting, like on any given team drill, it's like 4 snaps, anywhere between 4 and 6 snaps. Then the second team comes in. So there's really no chance to build up the continuity or get into a rhythm because they've got to split the snaps with the second team and the third team and so forth. So I want to see how the operation looks. Now, we saw some incidents with the first team offense where the snap between the quarterback and the center was not always smooth. So that obviously has to be smoothed out. All right. So just the little nuances, pre-snap penalties. That's another big one. We have seen that both in the starters. We've seen that in the backups. That has to stop. The pre-snap penalties that hurt this team, that's got to stop. Brian Dable has been pulling guys out of practice if they commit pre-snap penalties, but yet it has continued. It's gotten a little bit better, but it has still continued. So we'll see if that gets cleaned up, because the Giants, these discipline-related penalties have got to stop, plain and simple. All right, I want to see tackling and these guys, especially on defense, getting off blocks. Tackling, I don't have to tell you, it was a mess last year. It wasn't very good. Getting off of blocks, especially with that defensive front, the Giants brought in all kinds of new faces for the defensive line. None of them have really jumped out and said, here I am, this is my job, right? It's been a very underwhelming group thus far. So I want to see how they do with getting off blocks. I want to see how they do with getting to the hole, fitting holes. The run defense is going to be huge. Again, I mentioned Josh Allen isn't going to play for the Buffalo Bills. I would suspect that McDermott's going to probably have whoever is going to play at quarterback, probably going to hand the ball off a lot. That would be the most conservative way to really get your guys, your starters, some football action without maybe putting them at risk for an injury or anything like that. So that's what I think is going to happen there. Obviously, I'm hoping Evan Neal plays. I'd like to see how he looks at guards. And the reason why I say I hope he plays is that on Thursday, he was sidelined working with a trainer. So I don't know what that was about. I don't know if that was just load management. I don't know if he's dealing with something, but that is one guy who cannot, in my opinion, afford to sit on the sideline during preseason. Okay. And then finally, I want to see how the team just kind of flows. Now, Mike Kafka is going to probably call the plays for the regular season. I mean, he's been doing it in practice going back to the spring. I do think that is going to be the direction they go in. Brian Dable hasn't made that official. The play calling will be vanilla. All right. There's no game planning, mind you. So how will that transition work? Now, when Mike Kafka called the plays with decent quarterback plays back in 2022, the offense didn't look that bad. It didn't look great in 2023 when he was calling the plays, but they had injuries. So how is it going to look? Are there going to be any differences that we can maybe pick up in terms of how he handles the thought process? And I'm going to get to individuals in a moment, but the other thing, obviously, I want to take a look at is overall this Giant team's readiness to face an opponent. They've been knocking heads against each other for the last, 2.5 weeks? Time to hit somebody else. So are they going to be live wires? Are they going to be controlled? Again, it comes down to discipline. And the score does not matter. It doesn't matter if the Giants win or lose this game. What does matter is, do they look any closer to being ready as a team for the start of the regular season than maybe they have the last 2 years when they have just looked flat, unprepared, and undisciplined? So that's a few of some of the big picture items that I'm going to be looking for. Now, what about individuals and the battles? We'll talk about that right after this. Hey, Giant fans, ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So, in addition to managing your money, you're also building your wealth. With Monarch Money, I've been able to get a complete glance at my household spending all in one easy-to-use app. This helps with budgeting and with planning, not just for the upcoming week, but also for the short and long-term savings goals. So go on, take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com to get 50% off your first year. Again, that's monarchmoney.com, and that promo code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. This episode of Locked On Giants is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. It's the best time of year. NFL kickoff is almost here, and that means fantasy football season is back in full swing. And this year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with a fantasy football experience like never before. This year, I'm playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first timer or a veteran making your millionth league. Whether you're all in on something new or you like sticking to head-to-head leagues or jumping into public leagues, Yahoo has you covered. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout the month of August. To kick it off, they just dropped Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's one team left standing. With the season around the corner, now is the time to get your league together and give this new mode a try. If you're more into the classics, you can still play in head-to-head private leagues or join a public league. Stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to Locked On Giants. I'm your host, Patricia Traina. Coming up on the Locked On Giants podcast, again, the Giants play Saturday at Buffalo. I will have a full show for you, a recap with some thoughts, takeaways, whatnot, quotes, any injury updates, all that good stuff, your usual post-game coverage. I will have that for you on Saturday after the game. The kickoff time is set for 1 o'clock. So I hope to have the show ready for you by early evening to just kind of give you a rundown of what went down. So that is what's up on the Locked On Giants podcast. And then, of course, next week, we're back with all new shows 5 days a week as we are here on the Locked On Network. So hope you will tune in. All right. Now, we're talking about preseason, the Giants preseason opener. And I want to talk about some of the battles and where I think some of them are headed and how this preseason game could potentially help the guys that are competing. So I want to start off, obviously, with the receivers. Now, I do not think Malik Neighbors will play. I do not think Darius Slayton will play. I think both of them have been kind of dealing with something. Malik Neighbors, as we all know, has had the toe. He came out of practice a little bit early on Wednesday. Didn't really do much on Thursday, but then again, Thursday was kind of a cards practice. So I would think that they just held him out. They figured, why put him out there for a cards practice? All right. So this is going to be a golden opportunity for guys like Jalen Hyatt to step up. You know, Jalen Hyatt, he's worked so hard, that kid, but it just seems like every summer he flashes, he looks good. And then by the time we get into the games and preseason and all that stuff, he kind of drops off a little bit. So can he maintain the momentum that he's had in the summer and summer training camp? That's going to be something to keep an eye on, obviously. The bottom of the depth chart, you know, how is that going to shake out? Are they going to go veterans with that group? Zach Pascal, little Jordan Humphrey, or do they like some of these undrafted free agents? Now, I don't know Bo Collins, who's been nursing some sort of injury. I don't know if he's going to play. But certainly I would think Juice Wells will play. I would think Daquan Felton is going to play. These guys got to get on the field. So anybody who's a young guy competing for a roster spot and is at the bottom of the depth chart, if they can't get on the field, that doesn't bode well for them. But the receivers, that should be an interesting game to watch in terms of how they function, especially since it's expected that Jaxson Dart will play. Actually, not expected. Brian Dable did confirm that he will play. I'm not sure exactly when he's going to play. Is he going to start the game? Is he going to come in and relieve the starters? If that's the case, I don't know that. Dable, you know, just didn't give that information out. He never tells us what the plans are for preseason. But Jaxson Dart is going to play. And speaking of Jaxson Dart, I don't think it's at this point that it's necessarily a competition for quarterback too. I think that will come or will continue to come down the line. But as far as Jaxson Dart is concerned, they want to get him reps, obviously, because there is no substitute for the live reps. And they kind of know what they've got in Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston's been around for, 10 years? So there's plenty of film on him. And, oh, by the way, Jameis Winston throws a gorgeous deep ball. Let me just tell you, if you can put up with the occasional interceptions and stuff. Winston just throws a beautiful deep ball, just as good as Russell Wilson, I think. But getting back to Jaxson Dart, it's going to be all about, is he ready to take that next step? Now, offensive coordinator Mike Kafka spoke glowingly about Dart. He says that he's right on schedule in his development. So they have like little milestones that they keep, little boxes that they want Dart to check off. And it sounds like he has been checking them off. So Dart is going to get plenty of opportunity in this game. Now, the key for him, don't be a live wire. He's going to have his family up there, some friends, but, don't get nervous. Don't get, jumpy in the pocket or feel like you've got to press or anything like that. I haven't seen any indication that he would do that, at least in the practices, but a game situation could be a little different. You never know. So how does he function with, the lights on him? Now, he said today, Thursday, that, no lights are too bright for him. Let's see. Words are one thing, action is another. I think he'll do fine, but again, the proof's going to be once he gets out on the field and does it. All right. Offensive line depth. I mentioned in the previous segment, I didn't know if Evan Neal was going to play because he was on the side on Thursday with a trainer. Now, it could have been load management. I don't know. But obviously, that spot for right guard is up for grabs. If Evan Neal can't play, then that's not good for him. That's going to give, that's going to put him behind the eight ball, so to speak, because Greg Van Roten, we know he could play the position. We know he could be serviceable at that position. Evan Neal's got to get out there. All the work he's done in practice, and he's looked good at practice, but all the work he's done, got to get out there, and he's got to show it. All right. Speaking of the offensive line, I don't know how settled the depth is for the reserves. All right. So James Hudson has been playing left tackle while Andrew Thomas is on PUP. And I got to be honest with you, based on what I've kind of seen in practice, I haven't been blown away. So I'm not sure if there's going to be a competition there. I do think, at the end of the day, James Hudson will win that job. But the guy I want to see most, Marcus Bowe, he got some first-team reps actually the other day when Hudson had to go inside for an injury check. So I'm really excited about and intrigued by Marcus Bowe, how he does, and if he can maybe pick up some ground, because I do think ultimately he's going to become the new right tackle if the Giants move on from Jermaine Illuminor. Meanwhile, along the interior, who are the backup guards and centers? All right. You would like to think whoever loses the right guard spot, whether it be Van Roten or Neal, that's going to be one of the backup guards. But, will Jake Kubas step up and show improvement from last year? Who's your backup center? Is it going to be, maybe Jimmy Morrissey? Is Austin Schlottman going to step in? So some questions there about the interior. That's probably the biggest question mark I have regarding the offensive line is the interior. I don't know how settled that is. All right. Obviously, I'm looking forward to seeing Abdul Carter. I mean, Abdul Carter, you get the impression he's just chomping at the bit, ready to go out there and play some football. It's been, 6 months since he's played, and he spoke about how excited he is and how he's going to leave it all on the field in preseason. You got to like that intensity because, and the other thing you got to like about Abdul Carter is, he was asked about, are you going to hold anything back, or, as far as any kind of moves or anything like that? And he said no. He's basically daring people to like, okay, my film is out there, figure out how to stop me. So I kind of like the confidence that Abdul Carter has been showing. And I'm looking forward to seeing how he does out there. I don't know how much they're going to move him around because obviously I don't think they want to tip the Commanders and the Cowboys off as to what they might be planning to do with Carter, but certainly want to see how he is deployed. The cornerback depth right now is a little concerning to me, mainly because they have some injuries. Trey Hawkins III, Art Green, Corey Black, and Cordell Flott have all had injuries of late. So they're a little thin there at cornerback. So going back to the starter role, though, this is a golden opportunity for Deonte Banks to put an end to the competition. Because, again, if Cordell Flott can't get on the field and stay on the field, then there's really no competition to speak of. It's like, what do they say? You can't make the club from the tub. I think that's the saying. So this is an opportunity for Deontay Banks, and again, everybody has spoken about how well he's looked, and how attentive he's been, and how focused he's been. All right, let's see if that's true. Let's see it in a game scenario. Does he get frustrated if he's asked to play zone coverage? Does he, stick with it? Is he going to turn his head around to look for the ball? Is he going to do a better job of reading what the receiver in front of him is doing? These are all questions that Deontay Banks needs to answer. And if he can continue to answer them satisfactorily, he's going to win this job, and the competition is going to be over. So those are some of the bigger, the specific battles that need to be sorted out. Now, no answers are going to be done after one preseason game. Obviously, there's still the joint practices with the Jets coming up next week, then the preseason game with the Jets, and then the preseason finale against the New England Patriots. So still a lot of preseason football to be had, a lot of opportunity for guys to convince the coaches that, yes, they belong on the 53-man roster. So we'll just see how that all plays out. And again, I will have an update for you after the game. All right, coming up next, I'm going to talk about preseason activity and injuries and why it is so important. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Hey, Giant fans, it's time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with friends, this is a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest, you know that there are some days that no matter what you're doing, you just need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized. The grape ginger lime flavor gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without having to chase down the beverage cart. And right now through September 30th, when you use my promo code LOCKEDONGOLF at 5hourenergy.com, that's the number 5hourenergy.com, you will receive 20% off on one order. Again, this offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The discount is also not valid for subscription orders. So don't forget that promo code is locked on golf for 20% off on one order at 5hourenergy.com. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to Locked On Giants. I'm your host, Patricia Traina. In this segment, I'm going to talk about some information that was shared by Peter Bukowski. Peter Bukowski is the host of Locked On Packers. He also writes his own publication online. It's called The Leap. And he came across a very interesting study that kind of reinforces what I've been saying about teams and preseason snaps and getting players on the field for the preseason, even if it's just for a couple of segments or so. So as you all know, if you've been watching or listening to me here on the Locked On Giants podcast, you know I have been screaming for Brian Daboll to play the starters, even if it's just for a couple of series here for this week. Then, next week, if they don't play, no big deal. And then a dress rehearsal in week 3. Well, Peter did a study in which he found, actually, let me back up a little bit. He did a study in which he found some research that compared the 2019 injury rate with the 2020 injury rate in the NFL. Now, why those years? 2020, if you remember, that was the year of the COVID pandemic. That year, there was no preseason games. Training camps were reduced, that there were 80 men on the roster as opposed to 90 men. The NFL basically had to turn things upside down before, in order to meet health and safety requirements. So what Peter's study found, and he cited the National Library of Medicine Studies, which I'll link in the show notes for you if you want to check this article out, because they had a table and whatnot. But what the study basically found was that players in 2019 had a lower injury rate than those in 2020. And the reason for that, because playing in the preseason helps as part of the player conditioning. All right. So, in other words, yes, you can have your players run wind sprints. Yes, you can have your players do thudding in practice. But think about it. Okay. Just think about this for a moment. How many of you have ever started a new physical activity, whether it be jogging, whether it be power walking, yoga, Pilates, whatever the case may be, weight training? And the first time you did it, were you not sore? I think most people are, because if you're using muscles and you're putting stress on the body for the first time, doing a different type of activity, you're going to be sore. So the inclination, if you're sore, is to rest and let yourself recover. Well, in the NFL, these guys really don't have a whole lot of time to rest and recover. So if they haven't been out there and they haven't been hitting each other and tackling and going down to the ground, they don't have a whole lot of time to recover the first time they do it. So what does that lead to? Again, according to what Peter found in his research, it leads to more soft tissue injuries. Hello. So there is something to it. All right. Now, there was an article also that was done on FTN Fantasy, and I wrote about this for New York Giants on SI. I found this very interesting. Last year, the Giants finished 14th overall in man games lost. So they were the 14th most injured team in the league last year. Not bad considering in previous years they had been in like the top 5. The way that broke down for the Giants, though, last year, they were 13th on offense and 17th on defense. So, Brian Daboll, for whatever the reason, and I think it has to do with, he believes that if he keeps guys out, he'll keep them fresh and he won't, run the risk of, heaven forbid, a starter getting hurt in the preseason. But as I have said so many times on this program, injuries don't discriminate. They're going to happen, whether it be in practice, whether it be in a game, whether it be on grass, whether it be on turf. Injuries are going to happen. We see it every year. We've already seen it with the Giants. And I understand, you don't want to take unnecessary risk. You don't want to put a guy out there, say, for example, Malik Neighbors, who even if he was 100% and didn't have that toe issue, you don't want to put a guy out there if you kind of know what he could do, right? You want to gradually ramp him up for the physical part. But the bottom line, folks, is there is something to be said about going out there and getting all your players preseason snaps. All right. Again, it doesn't have to be a full game, just some. Ramp it up. Let them experience the soreness. Let them get into a routine with recovery, because it's just not the same in practice as it is in preseason games. The protected environment is gone. Quarterbacks are going to get hit. They're going to get knocked down. Guys are going to get tackled to the ground. And I just think, and I cannot stress this enough, I know you guys are probably sick of me saying this, but I cannot stress enough the importance that Brian Daboll get those guys, as many of them as possible, get them preseason snaps. Will he do it? Again, he's not saying. I think he's going to. I would be very, very surprised if he doesn't. Again, even if it's just a couple of series, if he doesn't, well, spoiler alert, you're going to know one of my next topics the next time I come back with a new episode. All right, Giant fans, speaking of which, that is going to do it for this edition of the Locked On Giants podcast. Now, before we say goodbye, for your next listen, please consider checking out Locked On Bets. Betting experts Lee Sterling and Kevin Rodgers have daily MLB locks and can't miss football futures. Find Locked On Bets wherever you listen to your podcasts. All right, Giant fans, that's going to do it for me today. I will be back tomorrow with an all-new episode post-game following the Giants-Buffalo Bills preseason game. Hope you will join me. Until then, have a good weekend and hope to see you.